NFTV Extra.
Hello, NFTV Extra. Welcome to the Formula One reaction to a absolutely chaotic, manic British Grand Prix. Absolutely incredible race. It had a bit. Well, it did have a bit of everything, didn't it? So when we say everything, literally on the first lap, you've seen 4 cars absolutely all over the place. So we're seeing, the big one is Zhao, who went off and it was a collision with Russell literally at the start, where Zhao's car, the Alfa Romeo, just goes over and flips over and rolls and hits the barrier. You're thinking the worst. And you didn't say for a long time because there was the unsure whether he was safe. They weren't showing the replays, but having looked at it back, it looks horrendous because Gasly was trying to get through a gap between Russell and Zhao, and Russell comes over and hits. Well, Gasly hits Russell, and Russell then has the impact on to the Alfa Romeo, and then obviously Alex Albon, right at the beginning as well, he smashes into a wall. A different incident on literally the first corner as well. And Tsunoda gets absolutely... He hits Albon because he's trying to slow down, and then it just comes across him. So you had 3 cars that were out, and there was a lot of worrying signs about what was going on with Zhao because there was no replays. Thankfully, he's okay. Then they started to show the replays, and he came back into the paddock later on. So that was really good news because there was a lot of concern about it, and the Formula One gets a lot of criticism for safety, and the halo which has been designed on the cars, which wasn't everyone's cup of tea, but it saved his life today, and absolutely saved his life. And without that, I think Zhao, will pass today. I think he'll die from that incident today because his head would have hit the ground and it would have took his head off. So yeah, it was good that's there, and that's a good thing about the halo. And obviously Alex Albon, who was kept in hospital for quite a large period of time just for health checks. I think he's going to be okay, but pretty scary. It was a pretty scary start, the British Grand Prix, and it was red flag for a long, long time until they got the safety out. And then you had the stupid protesters. It hasn't been talked about much, but you had loads and loads of protesters who were the same group that could be the same group that, I was at the Goodison Park game. He tied himself to a goalpost, and on the motorways down just outside of London, they glued themselves. And this was later on in the first lap, and thankfully the F1 drivers didn't go full belt because the crash had happened and it was red flag, so it was probably safety reasons. But absolutely stupid in a sellout crowd of over 140,000 down at Silverstone today. But it was nearly an hour for the restart, and it was interesting because on the first lap both Ferraris were passed. So Verstappen got past Sainz and Leclerc was passed by Hamilton, but because of the regulations and the rules, they had to look back at the point where the safety car comes out. They haven't even done a lap, so they've got to go back to the starting grid, which thankfully helped Ferrari at the start because we go back to being back on pole. But without a shadow of a doubt, it was a fantastic race after that. Verstappen obviously had a massive problem with his puncture, and then he had his power unit is something to do with his body armor underneath his car wasn't working, and I'm not going to lie, from a selfish point of view, I did enjoy that. I did enjoy it because obviously I think if Verstappen starts running away with the title, it's not going to make the season competitive. So we need the likes of Ferrari competing. So him dropping down, I was happy. Put it that way, I was very happy. A lot of retirements today. I'll come back to that in a second, but it was a great battle. Perez obviously clashed with Leclerc at the beginning. Leclerc had a slight damage, but he still had the pace. It would have been interesting if they fixed his wing. Would have had a little bit more pace, potentially. Obviously, there was talk on the radio with Sainz and Leclerc when they were first, second. Look, Hamilton's catching you behind. Are you going to swap if you can't get the lap times of, I think it was 1:32.9. Sainz did start doing it, and then they pitted them. And towards the end of the race, it was fantastic because Perez came back from nowhere. I think he was down at 13th at one position, so there was a top 4. When the safety car come out, that made the whole race interesting because the safety car come back out because Esteban Ocon had stopped literally in a straight line. He couldn't get his car to move. So it was all happening with the retirements. There was loads of retirements, as I say. And the disappointing thing for Daniel Ricciardo was that all these retirements and he still can't get in the points for the McLaren. Don't know what's happened to him this season. He's just not the same driver. His performance levels are so down, and he's just way underperforming. But when the safety car come, the big talking point is, why didn't Ferrari pit Leclerc? Leclerc's furious afterwards. You see Matteo Benotti pointing the finger at him, and that's basically just be careful what you say at the media, because obviously Sainz went in, Hamilton went in, so they were on soft tyres, and they kept Leclerc out, which was bizarre. And it's not the first time we've seen it at Monaco. They mess up in the pits, and Leclerc's driving around on hard tyres for when the safety car then goes out, and he's got cars behind him on much more fresher tyres. Don't get me wrong, Leclerc was fighting back, and I love that about Charles Leclerc. I love that about him. The fight that's in him is unreal. If he had a better car, if he was in a Red Bull, for example, I think Leclerc would be given a run for Verstappen right at the top right now. But look, the Ferrari is still a fantastic car. Of course it is. But I think the Red Bull is still a little bit more than the Ferrari. But towards the last 10 laps, it's like wacky races all over again. It was a free for all. It was great. And then Sainz got away, and we'll come to Sainz in a minute, and he obviously goes on to win the Grand Prix, which is brilliant for him. And then Perez coming from nowhere, absolutely nowhere. He was quiet all race, obviously hit with Leclerc, as I say. And then Hamilton, what a drive by Lewis Hamilton today. I have to give credit to him, because he was fighting, and there was one section where Perez and Leclerc fighting, and Hamilton sees it and gets first place, takes over. Hamilton really fought today, really fought, and the Mercedes is almost on its way back. And I just want to go back and give a big shout out to George Russell, who obviously he went out in that first corner incident with the Alfa Romeo, but he got out his car and ran across to make sure that he was all right. And I think that shows you the man that he is, and that's, you've got to say, credit to him. He could have went on and tried and drove on, but he was more worried about his fellow colleague, a competitor, and that shows you the credible man that he is. So I just want to say really well done for George Russell, because a lot of other people probably wouldn't have done that. Of course, the Austrian Grand Prix, which is a short lap up the hill and back down again. That comes up next, which is only a week away. But what a moment for Carlos Sainz. Yes! Because I am Ferrari through and through. I wish I could get me Carlos Sainz top on, actually, because it's in the wash, believe it or not. You might be able to hear the wash on the background and the dog barking. But brilliant for Carlos Sainz. It's his 150th. It's the second longest streak in Formula 1 without anyone winning. So it's a fantastic win for him, a real confidence boost. But if Ferrari had pitted Leclerc at the same time, you're probably talking Charles Leclerc wins it for me. But nevertheless, Ferrari first and fourth, closing the gap a little bit down on Red Bull. And Perez closes the gap down to Verstappen. So does Leclerc a little bit as well, because Verstappen, with his problems, was almost taken over by Mick Schumacher, believe it or not. Mick Schumacher. And finally, Mick Schumacher gets points. He finished 8th, almost got 7th, but the Verstappen had massive power unit failures underneath the car, the body armour. But great for Mick Schumacher, brilliant for him. And the only driver who hasn't scored a championship point now is Nicholas Latifi. He's the only one. Hulkenberg hasn't, but he was only a step in. But Latifi was at 1 point 7th or 8th in today's Grand Prix, because he finished incredibly 10th in qualifying. But he's the only driver that's left that hasn't. He went down the pecking order. But the Brits, obviously, Russell out. Norris comes 6th. He's getting a lot of cheering and support from the crowd when the Sky Sports were doing the interviews. And Hamilton obviously getting a podium, could have won it perhaps, but it's Carlos Sainz Day, which I'm delighted for, being a Ferrari. Keeps the sport a little bit more competitive, but Ferrari have missed a trick here, not pitting Charles Leclerc again. And obviously Leclerc's come out and said he's disappointed for himself, but he's buzzing for Carlos Sainz. Has been told basically don't say anything negative towards the team, because the team picked up a win today, but had plenty of time to pit both drivers. But yeah, that's my reaction from the British Grand Prix. And we'll move on to Austria next weekend here on NFTV Extra.